Hello, happy 2023, almost to the end, everyone. I've got I've got 2024 in my head
Yeah.
because it's like, yeah, I'm a little bit kind of hyped up about the end of the year. The excitement of holidays coming soon and having 10 days off work is like it's a bit heady.
Well, it's funny because Christmas and this kind of time of the year is just it's a lot more knitting and maybe a lot less relaxed as usual because I'm just trying to finish all of the
Yep.
knits I want to give as presents.
Yep.
So it's a lot of like frantic knitting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, mine is frantic planning because
Yeah.
I have about 50 million different projects I've on the go, yarn wound for, or I have like, oh, I'll do that when it's holidays. So now I'm sitting here and I'm trying not to get, holiday panic as to what to knit and which to go with first of all. What I'm attempting to throttle back on for myself is, from a designing point of view, pick things that I don't have to think about. So I can sit around in the evening and I can just knit. So
Yeah.
I've got a pair of socks, which is
Yeah.
it's a good one to start with.
Mm.
And I picked up a skein of yarn in Rhinebeck. That's this really bright multicolored yarn. I should have brought it in with me. It's the Whimsical Dye Company, I think was the name of it. It was, but it's just fantastic colors, and my oldest is going to just love it. So I'm looking forward to being able to give a finished pair of socks. I at least had a couple of inches to show them when they arrived yesterday, and they're like, "Oh, I love the colors."
But I think that's the thing is you need to find a project where you can sit in the living room with your relatives and not frown at them when they interrupt your counting because you want to be nice. So,
and we have over behind us, Laura is telling us and reminding us that she is going to be knitting Iascar. She's been for, I think, it won't say 2 years because it was just last January it was released. It seems like 2 years ago, but she's been planning and plotting her yarns and what she's going to use. And we just got a new yarn in the door, and that was what sold her. That's her. She's like, that's it. That's going to be
she
my
was waiting for the right yarn, and it just arrived on a white horse, basically.
White with some other pretty colors. You'll all get to see it in January. We're going to have some pretty exciting stuff to share with you, but that's going to be a secret we will keep until January. But I think you're going to like it because obviously, assuming Laura hasn't knitted all up over the Christmas holidays, which is a possibility because it's pretty nice. Before I forget, I must congratulate our winner from last week. So we had the comments last week that came in. And they were answered by, I was asking my favorite way of knitting color work, and it was 2 colors. And most people went into detail saying that the pattern color in the left hand and the background color in the right hand. So our winner was Rosalind Braid. So congratulations. You will win one of our classes, either a master class or a project workshop. It's up to you. Just send us on an email, or if we don't hear from you, we'll have a look, see if we've got your email address. But if you're listening, just pop in a comment or send us on an email, either through the contact form or through just send me a message here on YouTube would work great as well. So congratulations. And as we're near the start, and for anyone who came in at the beginning, I'm going to ask a question this week now so that everybody who's listening through the whole thing would have a chance to actually answer it. So this one is just for you. It is wanting to let us know what technique you would like to learn in 2024. So we're going to have 2024 will be our year of learning, and we want to make sure that what we're teaching you is what you want to learn, and that we answer as many knitting questions, or either things that I know already will teach you, or for me, a big part of it is if you come up with something you're like, I'd like to learn that. And if I don't know how to do it, I will go and learn how to do it, or find someone who can do it to teach you and teach me, so that it can be a year of learning for all of us, basically, because it'll be fun. So let us know in the comments, and we will pick one more winner for a class, and we're going to announce it by the end of this YouTube live. So just pop them on up there. And actually, as we're talking about Christmas knitting, let us know as well, what are you knitting on for Christmas? What's on your needles right now? If you've got a Yew Mor on the needles, how are you progressing? Is there any questions you've got? We've got, like, Mags has been doing like phenomenal knitting here.
It's so nice to knit. I started the sleeves because we wanted to talk about the sleeves today. So I haven't finished the body, But so far, it looks like this.
Ooh, I love it.
And it's really, for a color work, it's surprisingly light as well. And it's like a hug. I really like it. So I'm just really looking forward to, I think now I've started the sleeve, I'm going to finish the sleeve. And then I'll probably finish the body after that. I just need to decide what cast off I'm going to do.
We will make sure that we talk about that today.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll have a little bit of. Oh, we've got one. Laura lets us know double knitting technique is on people's lists of things they'd like to learn. So if there's anybody else who would like to learn double knitting, let us know. I'm going to have a quick look here at the messages. We've got Eileen from Virginia. Hi, Eileen. Liz, I hope you're feeling better today. I think that you're slightly improved because we saw you popping up in Facebook several crocheted decorations. So I'm guessing you're at least somewhat improved. So hopefully that's continued and you haven't overdone things too much. Sheila, hello. Jolene, good morning from Los Angeles. Oh my God, that must be really early over there. You're very devoted. It's because we're mid-afternoon here. We should probably have made it a little later in the day to make it easier for people on the west coast of the US to jump in. Who else do we have here? We've got a question. Wondering, you knit continental style and you keep the contrast color in your left hand. So when you're traveling down the work, the main color is traveling up. Is that in your case the same? I'm not sure I totally understand the. Oh, hang on. So if you're putting the pattern color in your left hand, that would be right. Yeah, that would be correct. And then when your pattern color you've got in your left hand because you're using continental style, and then you actually, for the rest of it, you're still holding the yarn in the left hand. So what you'll probably end up doing when you're done with the color work then is swapping the yarn over, I assume. Is that what you did with this? Or can you remember?
Like swapping. Well, the thing is, like, I don't knit continental, so I knit with flicking.
Oh, so you left the yarn and you were.
So I just stopped knit. Like I used continental style for the contrast color, and then once it was done, I was just like bye bye and.
Okay, yeah. But I'm wondering, like, if you're normally a continental knitter, I think that you can just swap when the color works over. You just swap back over.
I'd say so, yeah.
Because the only time it's really going to be of a lot of critical or very critical is when the two are together, and then once it's over.
And I'd say I want to be the most comfortable. When I'm starting the body, especially because I want everything to be the same tension and look the exact same. So I think I would choose my most comfortable technique for that big highway part. I call that the highway part.
Do you want me to answer the question again? Sorry, Laura's just giving me a reminder in case I look confused here. She was holding the question up again and I was a little confused. So for anyone who has joined us late, we're going to ask the question again. We're going to do the giveaway over the course of the actual Zoom here. So we're going to pick a winner from the comment section at the end of the Zoom live, YouTube live. We want to know, and put the answer in the comments, what technique would you like to learn for 2024? Just pop it up in the comments there. And everyone who's put it in, we're going to do just a random drawing of a winner from those comments. So because I said it so early in the YouTube, we thought we'd add it in again to make sure that nobody misses it, because we want you all to have a chance to win. Let me have a look. Oh, there's another double knitting. There's somebody here. You switched back with the main to the left. I think that's fine. Basically, if you normally hold with your left hand, but you were keeping it in the right hand for the color work, totally swap back. It should be fine. The only time it's going to be critical is over the color work, because then it will have an impact. And you can have it the other way around, but you'll probably notice that your color work looks a little different, that you're going to have a different dominant color, that the pattern may fade back a little and the background will look a little bit brighter, because you can see with this that the pattern does stand out. It's the one, even though it's the lighter color, it pops out. And if that was the other way around, it's going to fade into the background and you potentially have the inverse, like that. Those ones could pop out.
And especially, I think, with the little columns here, I want them to stand out. I want them to be like a frank kind of line between the two. I don't know what people see. I see teepees, but I know that.
I think they totally look like Christmas trees to me. Look, this
Yeah,
is like
that's
a
the thing.
little
Like we
pot
don't see the
here
same thing.
with the tree. I
It's like
think
that
it's
psychoanalytic thing. It's like, what
yeah.
do you see in the
Yep.
color work?
There was actually I don't know, I can't remember your name. I apologize, but on NitHub somebody had the color work went a little different for them. If you're on here, give us a shout. And it ended up looking like angels. You redesigned the
Oh,
it was unintentional, but it looked lovely. So sometimes unintentional things can look really nice.
Serendipity.
Oh, we've got some interesting. Audrey for 2024 wants to try steeking and inserting a zipper into a cardigan. Oh, that's a good one.
Yes.
Donna is still working in Yew Mor, slow going with the two-handed knitting. Like, fortunately, Donna, it is a relatively short stretch, and then the rest of it, it's just plain sailing. So that's the nice thing about getting the color work done near the top, is that the rest of it is really relaxing knitting. So if you get that done before Christmas, then you've got relaxing Christmas knitting. So that's the goal, right?
That's what we want.
And we've got Jolene is currently finishing Santa hats that she designed for her granddaughter. Kath would like to learn the afterthought sock heel. Oh, I like that.
It's a fun one to make.
Have you done that before?
So I've done it once. You know, it's same with steeking. Is like you feel weird with a pair of scissors next to your carefully knitted piece, but it's really, really nice to do. I really like it. I want to do it to add some pockets to one of my cardigans.
Yeah,
but I'm scared.
I've done it for I've done it to correct problems as well, where like you know, where you can actually cut somewhere and then undo it and then re-knit top down at that point down. So it's even more than an afterthought. It's basically putting it like an enforced provisional cast on. So anyone who hasn't done an afterthought sock, it's basically you knit a tube, right? And then where you want the heel, you cut one stitch and then you unpick in both directions. And then it's a short rows you put in when you do it.
And then you don't have to, not you can do short rows, but you can just do whatever whatever decrease you would do for your tip as well. It's so handy for self-changing yarn.
Oh yeah.
Because like I had that thing where like I bought some beautiful yarn. It was self-changing and self-striping, if that's a word.
Self-striping is totally the word,
and then I like doing my gusset heels and stuff, and it just messes up with the striping. So I was like, next time I would absolutely remember. Afterthought heel is great for when you have that kind of self-changing yarn.
And the thing is that actually that particular one, it just occurred to me that I have done it because last year our designer, Albina, she designed a color work sock and mitts, and that was the sock. But in that one, it was half and half, because it wasn't afterthought. It was one where you put in the yarn where you were going to have it. You know, you knit with the strand of yarn, you unpick.
You just
but she did the decreases like that, so in the very same way. But you didn't have the cutting into the which, considering it was color work, was probably just as well, I think. For anyone who is I'm looking through, we've got some brioche popping up there. So if you actually do want to learn brioche, we do in fact have a huge amount on Teachable on brioche. We've got the seasons course that we've got, the autumn season that was there. You can actually go on, and all of the videos on that are on there. We've got a free brioche starter one, and then we've got a couple of project ones. So there's the Vine and Veil shawl that works through several different brioche techniques. And we've got a brioche cardigan. So there would be quite a bit on brioche there if you wanted to go dive in, depending on what project you wanted to start with, or where your brioche knowledge is kind of starting with there. We've got more steeking. Entrelac and some steeking. And I love listening to what people want to learn. It's actually great because it's very inspirational for me, because some of them might be techniques that maybe I did them a couple of years ago and I'd kind of forgotten them, or I really need a refresh. And so it's a very good way of doing it. And we've got Laura is wondering what entrelac is. So if you haven't heard of entrelac, you've come across entrelac?
So that's the thing, is like it's a French word. So I'm like starting to imagine what it is, but like I like don't actually know.
It's weird. It's kind of a strange one. It's little diamond blocks where you knit back and forth, and then you come back and you pick up. So it's very it's like a patchwork version. A lot of people when they're learning will learn how to knit backwards, because there's tiny little parts that you're going back and forth, and it's kind of a pain to keep turning. So a lot of people learn backwards knitting when they're doing entrelac, because it's the easiest. So you kind of do a little block, and then you turn around, you pick up stitches, and you go on, and it forms like the closest way to kind of, it's like a diamond patchwork,
I think
but
you've
all
seen
built
some,
in one
yeah,
piece.
okay.
You know, it's very distinctive.
Okay, because
and
I was
it's
surprised, like, it's a French word. It says interlacing, basically. This is entrelacing my fingers, is basically that.
yeah.
So it's a poetic name, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what it is, and you wouldn't use it for everything. It's got a very distinctive look.
Okay.
But I know that anyone who does like it, they only like it because they've learned to knit backwards, so they never have to turn the knitting back and forward, really, you know. But yeah, because I've got a couple of years ago, I've got a book on entrelac, and I know the theory, but I haven't done much with it. There was a variant on it, Bristol Ivy in her Cozy Knits book. She did a cowl that kind of used something similar to entrelac, but it was slightly bigger rather than the very small ones, but the same kind of idea. So if you look at if you've got a Cozy Knits book in your library, you can have a look at it and take a look at Bristol Ivy's cowl design, and it's kind of entrelac-y, but like often more traditional entrelac is they're smaller blocks, whereas that one they're slightly bigger.
Okay.
But the technique is going to be pretty similar. But yeah, no, I haven't looked at that in a while. But yes, so I love, actually, I was going to say, if you want to hold this up with the pulling the body first of all, and then coming back to the sleeves, is actually a really good idea if you are worried about yarn. So like if you go, because it means that you always want, it's more important, I think, to have the sleeves the right length, right? It's
okay. That's such a good point.
Yeah, because I came across that technique before, where you go down like you did. I think that's great, because you just went to the ball, finished off, and then you just left it there, and then held the stitches, and then came back to pick up the sleeves. Then you can knit the sleeves, which use a lot less yarn, and then you can actually max out your yarn on the body, but it means that your sleeves would be okay.
Yes, that's a very good idea. I'd never done that. I always thought that people were doing that so they could post their progress on Instagram.
They might be.
Because it does look very nice when people do that. Yeah. But, and I think, I don't know, because it's my first time doing it, but I also like the idea that I will be able to try it on and to try and accurately. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because like I find that if I try it on before I've done the sleeves or anything, I don't know how that hole here is gonna kind of fall and stuff like that. Whereas here really it does feel, it feels a lot more reliable. The like trying it on. Yeah. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
I've got my trusty little. I've got my trusty little. I've lost the word for it, but I will find it very soon. This little guy.
Oh yeah, barber cord.
Barber cord. There we go. Oh my gosh. So that makes it easier to try it on as well. So I'm quite looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Very, very
and you actually appointed some. I can't remember if I wrote this into the pattern or if that's something you do automatically. When you're picking up stitches for sleeves, normally like you'll have, say you cast on 10 stitches in the underarm. When you come back, if you pick up just those 10 stitches, you will end up with a gap in each side. So did I write that into the pattern? No, I didn't, but you did it automatically.
Yeah, but especially I do it for socks as well. I will just pick one extra stitch, and then the next row I will knit two together. Yeah. Like it's not like it sometimes work really well on this side. I think it's kind of working fairly well on this. Yeah. Sorry, on one side, but I still always at the end I just come back and just make sure that there's no hole and stuff like that, because I don't like to have that small detail off.
Because that's often, like, I mean, a lot of you have probably actually encountered that when you're picking up stitches afterwards, leaving that gap. So the usual ways what Magali has done is picking up one extra stitch in the gap and then decrease it immediately. That's a big help. And the other two things that I will do is like what you've probably done is where you've got this one isn't so much a gap, it's a loose stitch. So you can actually, pull one leg of the stitch and actually tighten it up. That makes a big difference. And then if all else fails, leave a nice long yarn tail inside so you can sew it up as well.
I do that all the time. Yeah. I do I just add add a bit in the end.
Yeah,
I do that for
yeah.
my socks as well.
And
Just
people
making
feel
sure
like
that,
they're failing in some way if you have to sew it up, and it's like there's nothing wrong with that. Do it
yeah.
neatly where you don't see it. It's perfectly acceptable. But like definitely
Mm.
picking up one extra stitch in each of the sides helps. The cast on you use, because like what you did, was it a cable cast
I
on
did
the
a
wrong
ca-
side? Yeah.
I did a cable cast on the wrong side. I was a bit afraid at first because I felt like it was a bit too tight.
Yeah.
But the thing with cable cast on is like you do need to pull a little bit.
Yeah.
And then it kind of gets to a final kind
Yeah.
of final thing. Yeah, and it's just like picking up my stitches very, like, you know, in between the stitches, just so it looks nice.
Yeah.
I think I would even argue, like, regarding like adding a bit of a tail in the end to kind of, it's just so important to have like nice finishing touches. I think it just makes such a huge difference.
Yeah.
I know, like, to me, this isn't finished. This needs more work, and I will
Yeah.
get back at it
Exactly.
afterwards.
And you know you can do it. You know what
Yeah,
you need to do
I know
to
it.
come out the
Yeah,
other end with it.
I wouldn't want to have this. I think, you know, when you
Yeah.
spend like so many hours on something,
But
that
it's very
yeah.
correctable. Like the thing is that
Yeah.
that's a very
Yeah.
easy fix. Is that, and loose
Because I
stitches are
remember
normal.
trying to kind of get rid of that by just pulling, and it just doesn't feel right to
Yeah.
pull the yarn a
Yeah.
lot as well. So
Because I might actually, I'm going to
Yeah.
grab the end here to kind
Yeah.
of show what when I'm talking to people here is like, so when there's a loose stitch like this, you can see that that's mainly that stitch that you can pull the side here, or whichever. Basically, I'll keep kind of working through to see which leg of the stitch I can pull that will close the gap up. So I don't want, I'm going to end up like pulling your sleeves off if I pull it too much.
No, but like, yeah, I think whatever works, and don't change your winning team. So I don't, you know,
do what works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just whatever works.
Yeah. Oh, there's one I see Rachel here has popped in as well, that she'd like to learn cable work in 2024.
Yes.
You should totally jump into Celtic Knits Club 24, because it is all about cables. The main club is closed now, but the digital is still available. And so you'll kind of be led through different patterns, and everything is described from scratch. So I'll show how to read cable, how to read the charts, how to actually go and work cables with and without the cable needle and things like that. So there'll be there's quite a bit of teaching through the actual club. So it's probably a good place to start. If you want to start straight away, then take a look through some of the other clubs, because all of the videos are still there. So it's been going since 2020. So there's several years where when you get the club, you'll get every single pattern within that. So if there's something that just really jumps out at you, then a past year might be just as interesting to you as something that you have to wait for over the coming year. But if you want like to defer it until starting in March, then the 24 club is a good one for you. Is there anything we got? Carol is a cable expert. Well, I definitely love cables.
You do. There's a lot of cables in that shop. There, yeah.
I've got Viv was wondering, could I repeat what I said about the sleeves? Can I just check with you, Viv? Was it in relation to how you can get rid of the gap in there? I'm happy to repeat, but I want to make sure I'm repeating the part that you want to hear. So just pop up an answer up there, and when you answer, I'll make sure to kind of, we can come back to it. And the next thing as well that we were talking about is the body, which you did one increase.
I did one of the increase rows, just to make sure that I have everything set up. I've just set up my little stitch marker, because I need like, it's every 15th row.
Is that the start here round
here? So that's the beginning of row, the red one, and I just added one to count my rows.
Oh yeah, perfect.
Yeah, because I always have the thing when I'm counting my rows between increase rows. What is row number 1? So like, I have that thing where, like, when you can see the 2 stitches together, to me that's row 0. And so then I do like 0, 1, 2, 3, or then I don't know. I always end up being confused. Do you know, it's like in that film where they say like, oh, I'll count to 3, and they say like, oh, but is it 1, 2, 3 go, or is it 1, 2, 3 and we go at 3? Because I feel like that, and I was asking we have a family knitting WhatsApp group just for knitting. And I was asking them, and they were like, do you know what? Every single time I just ask myself, is it 15 stitches between the 2 increases, or is it the 15th?
So I will tell you, when I'm writing it, how I write it.
Yes.
So I would usually actually describe it as, I'll start off saying work your increase row. So that's like the increase row, that doesn't count. That's just the increase row. And then if I say work 5 more increases every 10th row. I'll always put 10th. So that means row number 10 after the last one. So there'll be 9 between them. And then the 10th one is going to be the increase.
Yeah.
It's a bit easier when you're doing a flat because you're back and forth and it's going to be pretty obvious which it's on because it's always going to be on your right side row, right?
Yes. Yes. That makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, but it would be, if I say 10th, that would mean that you'll have your first increase and then you'll have 9 and then the 10th one will be the next increase one. So there would be 9
between because I think that's what we're doing here. I'm decreasing every 10 rows. So I can count 9 rows between.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time. And I've made so many jumpers. My mom has made even more. And we're like,
I'll always draw a grid out. Like I'll actually, when I'm doing it, I'll draw the grid and I'll say I need 10. So I'll have columns that'll be 10. And then if it's every 5th row, I'll have 1, 2, 3. And then the 5th I'll have circled or highlighted so that I won't forget. I keep meaning to do markers. I never do. I'll just go back and see where it was and then count
but
up,
like the thing is, like as I'm counting back, because for instance, when I'm doing collar work, I count the row that is on my needles.
Right.
Because I need to for collar work.
Right.
So the row that is on my needles is the row number 8, for instance. But then when I'm not doing collar work, I don't count that row.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I sound confusing, it's because I'm confused. It's just like sometimes I always have this kind of bit of a doubt.
Yeah. And it is one of the rows, but it's like if you're it is because you've just knit it, but like just the ones that you've knit is going to be on it over on this side, not the ones over here, but it's as you're counting up. It would be because it's one. So like the easiest way to tell is when you make a decrease afterwards, you'll have the stitch on the needle and you'll see the 2 together. So that's how I would end up doing it.
Which one is the decrease row? Is it the one that is on the needle or is it the one with the 2 together? Do you know what I mean?
It will be the one that's on the needle because you've just done the decrease. So that means as you're doing it, that's the row you're going to, whichever's on the needle is the one you've just done.
I feel like that's what I call the quantum physics of knitting, because it's a whole thing of like if you hear a noise in the forest and no one is here to hear it, it's like, because for instance that you know what, I could go on for ages, but I think we should probably go into the comments and see if we've lost people. I don't want to lose people.
As I will get back, I see Viv was asking, she wants to know about the yarn usage. Okay, that was in relation to the sleeves.
That's a normal question to ask. Thank you.
So with that one, what we were saying is if you kind of knit down to the body to a point where it's a natural breaking point or stopping point and set it aside, then you can come back, knit your 2 sleeves. So you can do your sleeves to the full length. You don't have to worry about running out of yarn. That means when you come back to the body, you can just continue on and you can knit till your yarn runs out if you're doing top down and you want to finish the body off. So if you're worried about your yarn running out and you want to make sure your sleeves are the right length, doing the sleeves before you go back to complete the body will allow you to make sure that you don't shortchange yourself on the sleeves, because a little bit shorter, because it takes much less yarn to add a little to the sleeves, like an extra 10 grams in the sleeves will go a long way, but you'd hardly notice that adding an extra 10 grams is going to maybe add half an inch to the body length. And generally we've got more flexibility with the length of the body than you would have with the length of the sleeves. Like that's my feeling
but
anyway.
you're right. Like I'd rather maybe have to crop it a little bit.
Exactly.
And it still looks nice, especially because right now a lot of the pants and jeans are high rise, so a crop garment is really, really nice. Yeah.
I'm going to here. Audrey uses a row counter at the beginning of a row stitch marker. On the increase row, you change it back to 1. Perfect. Yep. Camila is also always very confusing. Diane wants to learn brioche in 24. We obviously got a lot of brioche fans around here. And Mary often puts a bulb stitch marker on row 1 to make it easier to count. So similar to what you're doing there, you're popping it on there. Yeah. And it's a great idea on the Ulach. You've opened a new skein for 2 meters of yarn to finish the sleeve. Exactly. And so if the sleeves were done first, then you'd happily finish as you start seeing yourself approaching the end with the body. And so it kind of maximizes the iron usage really.
Mm.
I wouldn't do it all the time, only if I was a little worried about running out of yarn. If I was kind of squeezing it pretty close to the wire in terms of the amount of yarn I had, that's kind of handy, I think. Judy, you finally cast on the Yew Mor pattern for your husband, and you started with the 5th size, but you've been going between that and size the 4th. Has anyone done these sizes, and what is the shoulder measurement? So you can, by shoulder measurement, you mean around here? What you can actually you can do with that is just take a look at the stitches and divide it by the gauge, so you'll actually be able to see what you're going to get down there, so that like basically before you divide for the body. So the stitch count you should be able to get that from the stitch count. But if anybody else is out there and has done it and wants to take a measuring tape out, then go for it. But that's actually a good way of doing it, kind of basically kind of jump between the 5th and the 4th size. So you've got wider shoulders for the 5th, but then not as many increases because the body is a bit narrow as well. Yeah, that works really well. With the increases in this as well, you've got, when I was working down, I should actually probably stand up so I can show you. So this, I've got increases going down in a very gentle A line. And I was a bit concerned as I was coming down before I put the ribbing on, it started to flare a bit at the bottom. It looked a bit flared out. And I was like, oh, this isn't going to look good. And then as soon as I put the ribbing on, it actually, it tidied it up. And I'm like, oh, actually, I'm totally happy with it. So just kind of maybe reassurance if anybody is a bit worried and you're doing the A line and you're worried about it getting too wide, that the ribbing does help. Or you could even make a wider ribbing at the bottom as well, would help.
I'm assuming the cast off as well might help as well.
Exactly. Yeah. You could be a little bit snugger if you're worried about it flaring out. So when you're knitting for yourself, how do you generally do straight down? Do you do A line, or do you have a preference?
I like doing straight down because so far I've been doing things that were very oversized. But I'm kind of changing. You're changing my mind in terms of what I want to be oversized or not, because I'm kind of looking to more like ever so slightly tighter garments. So I've always done straight. This is the first time I'm doing the A line, and I really like the shape of this when you're wearing it. I'm like, ooh, I'm really looking forward to seeing this and how it feels as well.
Yeah. The key is the bust shouldn't be oversized. Like that's
the thing. You want a snug
relative, a little bit of ease, but like not like 10 inches of ease, like just a little bit of room at the bust. And then because I would never have been an A-line shaped person in over the last 4 or 5 years. I'm just finding myself gravitating towards it. It's so easy to wear. It's just got a bit of a swing. Like if it's cropped, it's different, because cropped you're gonna be fairly straight down. But for a little bit longer, it's just an easy style to wear, It's
a nice style to wear. I think it goes well with high-waisted jeans as well. And I think it just gives that, it's also warm because it warms up the air that is in between your body and there. And it's kind of really warm, and when you're sitting down as well, it's kind of quite comfortable. There's
the only ones people I know that sometimes kind of veer away from it, or you might prefer something straight down or perhaps a little bit of shaping. So if you've got a very narrow waist and you're bustier, sometimes that can feel like it can feel like you're swimming on you a little. So with those, if that's your body shape, like more straight down, or possibly even doing a little bit of decreases for the waist and maybe increases for the hip would work. But like with this, like I'm going to hold it up here. For the A line, when I'm doing it, just to keep it simple, I'll always do it just at the sides. But if you were going to do
here, because I've got my stitch holders,
but like with increases, if I'm doing a decrease for the waist and increase, I'm more likely to put it kind of a little bit in further. So kind of like, I think they're known as princess seams, where it's like just
it's just just that one little
just it sounds fancier than it is. It just means that the decreases and increases are down a line here rather than at the edge. So there's kind of where you want it to be shaped in. It gives I think it's easier to wear and it looks better, because otherwise at the end you'd have it'll be kind of standing out to the side.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, and so you don't want to be like overly pronounced on the, like, you have the waist, not the garment, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's a good way of putting it.
I like that, because then the shape of the garment is not relying on your body or your body type, and I think it's a bit freeing as well. I really like that idea of like, you just, the garment has a shape, and it's gonna kind of, you show the shape of the garment, you don't show yours, and I kind of like that sometimes to kind of just.
And if anyone would like to actually learn how to do A-line shaping, or kind of an example of a pretty straightforward way of doing it, the Calius sweater, which I've done a lot, I've actually done multiple versions of it. That's actually a very nice, easy A-line one, where it's just, it's all about the stripes. You've probably seen me wear it. I've got a Juliette version.
Oh,
and
yes.
And there's a newer worsted one downstairs. Because the one downstairs is newer. The very first one was in Baramu Titus years ago, and that's still in my wardrobe. And so that one is got very slight increases. Newer worsted is downstairs, and then I did a Juliette one, which the gauge is a little looser, and I knitted a bigger size, so it's actually quite big. And
I've seen you wearing that one, I think. Yeah, with the light grey collar, kind of. Yeah. It's a really nice one. I like just the use of knit and purl to create pattern. Love that simple texture. I really like it. Yeah,
and just you kind of play with, and there's just a couple of stripes in it, but very little. It's mainly one color. It's one of the few ones I've knit many times. Like, that's the fact that we have 3 different versions of it now is kind of mad. We've got Mary has finished knitting toys for grandsons and is knitting a mystery gnome. Oh, I love that little gnome. It's all over. It's everywhere. Have you seen? There's a little knitted gnome. I don't know who's designed it, but it's the cutest thing with the big long knitted hat. Very cute. Wendy, Christmas knitting. You've just finished a scarf for a friend. Using some caprito you got. Oh, nice. That must be a good friend. And now you've got a little Advent knitting. While the video continues, enjoy your Advent knitting.
It's really nice.
And we wanted to make sure as well to talk about the bind off and this, because like we kind of referred to it a small bit last week, but it's probably worth talking about again. So the neck, I was saying that I actually like a tight bind off. So when you're knitting, kind of pull it quite tightly to give it a bit of shape. Without cutting off circulation to your neck, obviously.
We don't want that.
But for the end of these, you want it loose enough that it's not going to feel like it's constricted when you're putting it on, but you don't want it so loose that it loses all shape. So somewhere the happy medium between the two.
Well, because you mentioned the Icelandic bind off, which is also called the Norwegian bind off.
No, that's a cast on. The Norwegian one is that's.
But like, okay, so I don't know the Icelandic bind off. Do you think it would fit this?
It might. The time I've seen it mostly used is with garter stitch edging, because it kind of fits in very well with garter stitch edging, because it looks a little bit kind of like a reverse I-cord. I don't use it all that much. I know that some people really like it. It's not something that I find it fine, but I don't. There's plenty of other ones I would probably prefer to it.
So here, which one have you picked for this?
I'm very boring. I do a standard bind off, but I'm just really careful that it basically has enough stretch to it.
So how do you do that? Like, because I like doing that one with a lot of room. So I would knit my stitch and then kind of pull it a little bit. Yes, that's what you do. Yeah.
And I know sometimes people find that difficult, and they'll put in, they might end up moving up an extra needle size. But generally speaking, like color work, stretching out between each of them, almost identical to that. And I find it works really well. And you can kind of watch your gauge actually as you're going, and you can test the stretchy to see if it works. And I just find it works very well.
Whatever works.
Yeah. Like the other one, like I think it's Judy's stretchy bind off is one that I've used, but I think it's too much for this, because with that you're doing a reverse yarn over between each stitch and lifting it over, and what that's doing is pretty much what it sounds like. The yarn over adds extra yarn, which adds extra stretch, which I think you're doing manually when you stretch the stitches out. Because with
sometimes maybe sometimes the simplest kind of because I've tried so many different bind offs. I used to be madly in love with the tubular one, and now I'm actually a lot more careful where I use it. I wouldn't use it for here, not with that kind of yarn, not with that texture. I wouldn't.
What would put you off it, do you think?
I think it just would be way too stretchy. And it would probably
get a wave at the edge.
Yes.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, there's probably no official name for that, but I know what
Yes,
you're talking
yeah.
about. Yeah, it wouldn't hold its shape.
Yeah, and
Basically on the edge.
especially again, I think I was mentioning it last time, is like when sometimes when I do the dishes or something, I would like
Yeah.
to do this, and if I do this with tubular bind off, then
This-
it's not going to go back.
You may notice that, and usually I will do it for one by one.
Yeah.
It's, and that this is one case where I actually did the tubular bind off because I wanted to, like, the bind off here is, or was, hang on, was it? I think that might have been a different.
So
No,
this is the end of
that's
it.
an alternating. This was the bottom up. So this
So
was
alternated
actually,
cable cast on.
this was the, I'm trying to, I God, you think I'd remember. This one is bottom up. So this was the alternating cable cast on, and then the sleeves were picked up and went down, and it was a tubular bind off on the edge.
But see, I think that's the blaster, and I think the blaster has more structure to it than, like, I think with the Jas, it's so light and smooth. I don't want to.
It's also not a one by one, so it's like, so it's not going to work great. Because Laura was recently doing one where she did the tubular bind off on a neck, and the rest of it worked fine. Like on the edge of the buttonhole, it worked very nicely, and it actually worked very nicely. But on the neck, it ended up, like you were saying last week, yawning or gaping. Gaping around the neck. And so when she took it out and did a standard bind off, tugged a little tighter, was perfect. There was nothing else needed. So just watching your tension and just checking as you go through, and if something's gotten too tight or too loose, coming back. Like the best I ever had is there was a top-down sweater that a sample knitter sent to me. It was years ago. It wasn't a standard when I did it. It was kind of one done via somewhere else. Knitting was perfect. The edging on the cuffs, I actually couldn't pull it. It was like she had just like cinched it all up. I just pulled it out and I redid because I was afraid I was going to just snap the yarn when I put it on. It was that tight. And that was just a matter of loosening the tension up.
Yeah, same, because my very first cardigan couldn't close it because I didn't know that one doesn't cast off the same with the same tension that you knit. So it was way too small, and I was like, oh, that's it, I can never use this cast on again. So I spent quite a lot of time like learning other things, and now I'm just like going back to it, being like, I'm just gonna
it's more control, right? Like as you learn to control your tension, like everyone, you assume that it's just in relation to your knitting, but the tension comes into your bind off and your cast on. Like when you're doing something like a cable cast on, you're putting the stitches through, you can decide how loose that is before you put it on, and that will give you a little bit more give between stitches.
And that's a tool. Like your tension is a tool. It's not just something that happens to you. Like obviously,
that's a really good way of viewing it, actually.
Yeah, because I'm a loose knitter. I knit very, very loosely. I wouldn't decide that I'm going to knit very tightly for an entire garment. However, I will I know that I'm a loose knitter, so I'm going to adjust to my cast on and cast off. For that reason. And if you know that you're the kind of knitter that would have maybe the stitches don't really necessarily like flow off the needles because you like a bit more tension and stuff like that, then I would be a bit more careful.
Yeah, and the kind of times that I would vary my cast on or bind off are where the fabric is super stretchy. Like brioche is a really good example of it, because that will like grow to about twice its width. It's so horizontally stretchy. So you have to use a stretchy, like the Italian cast on is the one I usually use for that, because it's very, very stretchy and you can match it with 2 color if you need to, but it's perfect for brioche because it's.
But sorry, I cut you there. Because Italian bind off, to me, that's a tubular
cast on. Yeah,
cast on. No,
I meant cast on or bind.
Okay, I'm confusing myself and possibly people. Okay, cast on. Sorry, then
that's a cast on. Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
The cast on with that, it's and then with that, I usually use the. I think tubular bind.
Because tubular and Italian, basically, the Italian cast off and the tubular cast on, they're the same, but you with the Italian one, you just don't spread it over 2 needles. You just keep it on the same needle, and you just do a little bit more darning needle work. Sorry, that's what I wanted to say. They're basically the same. But sorry.
But the big thing being they're very good for 1 by 1. So ones that look like 1 by 1 ribbing and knitting, and they've got a good bit of stretch. I must have a look down here. Liz likes the standard bind off, and Camilla, you had a sweater and you took the bind off 3 times as your head wouldn't fit, and you ended up with Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. Yeah, because that one, by adding that extra yarn over in between, it's really going to give you a nice bit of extra stretch. as you're doing it. So like if you can control your tension and keep it loose, then that works. If you find if you're a tighter knitter, that could be really difficult for you. So an extra big needle size or doing those yarn overs in between, which would be what the Jenny's one would be, are great ways of giving you that extra stretch.
But and the fact that she talks about doing it over 3 times, and I think that's also something that I keep doing. It's just like if it doesn't work, it's just redo it.
Yeah.
And redo it.
Yeah.
Like if the yarn allows it, like if it was mohair and stuff like that, I wouldn't probably.
Yeah. Wendy is asking me, was I describing a suspended bind off? That's a favorite when I want to keep the bind off from being too firm or tight, but you don't want the flare of a lace or a super stretchy bind off. I'm not certain. I've heard that term, but I'm not 100% certain. So I'm not going to lie and actually try and bluff my way through that, because I'm not certain. I need to look it up. The likelihood is it's probably similar to something I know, but while I've heard the word, I haven't looked it up. So I will need to look that one up. I'll put it in the comments afterwards and look it up, and I'll tell you if it's the same one. And Pat, good morning from Kensington, Maryland. You finished up some Advent socks to wear on Christmas Day. Excellent.
Oh, excellent timing.
I
wow.
know. I like the idea of having special Christmas socks ready to go. And Kelly, you do the standard bind off for most garments. Yeah, so if the standard bind off does the job, then go with it. If it doesn't work, then that's often when you want to go looking for alternatives. It's one of those ones, if it's not broke, you don't need to fix it, right? Just
isn't there one with the crochet as well that gives you like a really nice braidy, like a braid finish?
Yeah. There was. I haven't used that one myself before.
But like I would probably use that maybe not on ribbing actually.
Yeah,
because you want something very discreet on the ribbing.
Yeah, like the main ones I use the basic one most of the time. For 1x1 where I want a lot of extra stretch, I would use the tubular one. And very often if I've got if I want a lot of extra stretch, then I will use Jenny's one. So they're kind of the main go-tos. There's one that I've used before as well called the elastic bind off, where it's almost the same as the standard one. So you knit 2 stitches, and instead of lifting 2 over, you bring them over and you knit them together through the back loops. So I
think I've seen that one.
Slightly stretchier. Like it's not as crazy stretchy as Jenny's one, but it's not as tight as the bind off. So we're winding up for the end of the session, and I have got a few little reminders from Laura behind us here. First of all, we want to call out our winner for our prize this week. So if you're still here, Jolene Borba, you have won a class or a master class, project workshop, anything you want. So send us on a message and let us know. If you're listening and you're not already a subscriber, we'd really love it if you popped a like on here and if you subscribe to us, because we're planning on a lot more lives and just other videos and tutorials during 2024. And that way you won't miss anything. So please do subscribe. Just press the button down there. I feel like I'm channeling like one of my children when I'm saying that, because it's like, just hit that subscribe button. But it does help. It really does. It does help because it means that we know you're listening. We know you're interested in what we're talking about. And always feel free to pop comments up there so that we know what you want to hear about, because we build it into what we're going to talk for future weeks as we're going forward. Over Christmas, we're going to be closed from lunchtime Friday, 1 o'clock on Friday the 22nd. We're closed, and we'll reopen on Tuesday the 2nd of January. So we will be going fairly quiet in social media. There'll be a few posts popping up that have been scheduled before the holidays. There'll be a few special newsletters. So again, make sure you're on our newsletter list with a few surprises over the holidays. But we will not be answering emails. It'll be unattended, but we will get back to everything over the course of the day on the 2nd, which obviously can take a little bit. So it might be the 3rd, but we will be we'll be getting back into the swing of things on the 2nd. And I do hope you all really, really enjoy your holidays and have some resting downtime. Don't work too hard. Don't knit your fingers to the bone, and pop into Knit Hub to chat with other knitters and just have, chat and talk through what you're doing over Christmas over the coming weeks. I'll have a pop up, and I may pop in and out every now and again to say hi if you're in need of a little bit of chat over the holidays. So thank you very much for a wonderful 2023. Bye everyone.